Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Melbourne Traditionalist podcast, episode 29. I'm Mark Moncrief from Upon Hope, and I have with me David Hiscox from XYZ. How are you, David?
Excellent.
Now, tell us about your food.
I've had a glorious weekend. I had a chicken schnitzel on Saturday night. I also I went to a poker night on Friday night, so that was quite nice.
Yep.
So then chicken schnitzel Saturday night. Then Sunday afternoon, I had lunch with an Italian family. So they cooked me a bit of pasta, and that was just the entree. And then I had chicken schnitzel. I had veal schnitzel on Saturday night. Chicken schnitzel Saturday afternoon. Then I got home. I actually went for a brief swim because I knew I'd need to make some room. And then I had roast pork in the evening, yesterday evening. So
and yet here I am looking at you in your slim, trim and terrific.
Yes.
How do you do it? How do you maintain your figure with such an outrageous eating regime?
I've eaten well. I've been the last 3 months actually. I've been actually going to a gym properly.
Yep.
And that's actually been a lot of fun. And even the last 3 months has sort of changed a lot, which has been really nice. Yeah.
And apparently you do shadow boxing.
Yes.
Where you actually touch.
Yeah, I got punched in the face on Saturday morning too. So my jaw is still feeling it. Yeah. You know, I got to know how to take a hit. I think we'll be talking about that a little later on today.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now, today I wanted to talk about individualism and how the right needs to do better.
Mm-hmm.
I have an article here that I will talk about later that actually comes from, what's the exact name? I'm going to get it wrong. Jacobite magazine, which is a American socialist magazine. And this was published in 2017, this article, which I'll link to. Political violence is a game the right can't win. And one of the reasons that he outlines is that we can't win because we don't organise.
Mm-hmm.
And we're far too individualistic. So the amount of support that we actually give each other, financial support, physical support, it's really pathetic. Dave?
I'm interested in more what you have to say on this.
Well, I've put up on my site a Subscribe Star link because it took like 6 weeks to actually be accepted by Subscribe Star. So Subscribe Star is like Patreon. So ordinary people can just subscribe to it and support people's work that they're doing, right? And I've written nearly 700 posts, been publishing since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
We've done 6 months worth of the Melbourne Traditionalist podcast, you and I, with some help from Mark Richardson of Oz Conservative. And, I've organised 2 conferences. I've actually put in, I feel anyway. And then I put up my Subscribe Star and no one's interested. I've received exactly 0 support, 0 messages. And this is what I wrote. I've never asked for support in the past because I didn't need it. Now I do need your support. And complete nothing.
Well,
and this I think is systematic. I keep seeing this over and over again of people on our side just saying, someone else can take care of it.
I reckon first up, keep flogging it. There are always ways that we can spread the word about Subscribe Star better. At XYZ, I reckon I could do more to channel people to the individual writers, Patreons, Subscribe Stars, whatever. It is a funny one. It's not just that the lefties have, they support each other. They have billionaires giving them money.
Not always. I mean, this is a problem that we always have on the right, is we always concentrate on our limitations,
Uh-huh.
on what we can't do,
Yeah.
or the police won't support us, or the government will prosecute us. The other side has really rich sponsors, but that wasn't always true. And they got to where they are now because they actually put in the effort.
Okay.
And we're far too quick to just say, oh no, it's too hard, it can't be done.
Yeah, fair call. Well, one of the things, there's an article that I actually want to write for the XYZ. I've had it in my... This often happens with me. I have articles in my mind for months, sometimes a year or so.
Yes.
Yeah. And eventually it makes its way. I want to write the XYZ guide on what to do when you get red-pilled. And the first bit of advice that I'm going to give is to say absolutely nothing for an entire year. Because that way you can sort of stay out of the eye of Zog for just a little longer. And then the next step from there is basically like, then you start to make physical connections and build up those physical networks. And obviously, start lifting. And that'll basically be the article. I can't believe it's taken me that long to not write 2 bits of advice. But I think that's it, really.
Well, I must say that I have highlighted on my computer, on the desktop, quotes that I've taken from people that I want to write articles about.
Yes.
And they're just there, sitting there.
Yeah.
And I haven't written it. So yeah, it's not just it's not a personal problem.
The
it's a widespread problem.
Oh, there's some of my favourite articles, like the ones that take a while just to percolate. Sometimes like I'll be driving along and I'll be listening to the ABC radio, and I'll hear a story, and in 30 seconds, like I know the article, I know the quotes, I know the angle, and you get down, you get home, and just bang bang bang,
Yeah.
it's up. And then sometimes you just got to sit in the one place long enough, and something will come out. But yeah, I guess to link back to what you're saying, that's the most important thing. Like once you've gone through that initial process of just being red-pilled on all the important points, then you realize, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Let's work on creating that community. Lucas Rosses, when he was with XYZ, he basically made the same point. He made 3 points. He said, start yesterday, don't stop. Actually, I think it was, just get organised, start yesterday and don't stop, basically. And he made that point that the lefties, like on their weekends, they don't go to football or cricket or just hang out or chill out. They're organising every single weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just what they do, because these people are freaks and they have no lives. And we've got to organise just as fanatically in order to beat them.
Well, as you're talking, I'm highlighting things that I want to read out from this article. So
that's absolutely fine. It's hilarious. I enjoy listening to Adam Pickett's podcasts. And Adam, he'll be like, he'll start off and then he'll go away from the microphone like this, and he'll be like, "Oh, sorry guys, hang on, just coming back." Then he comes back and he just opens up a tinny. It's great. And he's like, "Oh, is that this place? Oh, I can't remember the name of it. Tap 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 tap. Oh yeah, it was called this place." It's great. You should listen to Adam Pickett as well. Pushing Rubber podcasts. They're good value. In the latest one, he actually he gets stuck into Jordan Peterson. I've got to give Adam Pickett some credit because he is
a good writer, and yeah. I know you're a very big fan.
A huge fan. And Adam was one of the first people to call out Jordan Peterson. I was initially interested. I was, I'm not going to make excuses, but I did find it interesting when because people said, "Oh, you should read maps of meaning," and so I read the introduction and I found it fascinating. Like, he was talking about basically his journey from being a good Christian boy to rebelling against it, and then finding his way back to being some kind of anti-leftist.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got into the actual body of what he was talking about, and I couldn't read it. It was rubbish. It was gobbledygook.
Sorry, I missed a bit. Who was that?
Jordan Peterson. Maps of
Jordan
Meaning.
Peterson, yeah.
I tried reading the first 1.5. I got 1.5 pages into the first proper chapter, and I was just like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
But I still thought it was all right. And then Adam Piggott and Vox Day pointed out some obvious truths. And Vox Day said, "Look, this guy's going to have a nervous breakdown."
Yeah.
And so Adam Piggott, I put his stuff up. I didn't necessarily back him up with my own articles on it. But basically, Adam Piggott took all the slings and arrows. It was basically clickbait. You want lots of people to come to your website, write something critical of Jordan Peterson. You will get thousands, and you'll get dozens, hundreds of comments calling you a communist. But lo and behold, the first sign of his wife's cancer is Jordan Peterson has just fallen apart, and they called it. And this guy's giving out advice on how to live your life, and he can't live his own. He's got a condition where he literally the drugs that he was supposed to be taking to improve whatever he's got had the direct opposite response. He's just that messed up. And they called it. So kudos to Adam and Vox.
Well, you're right. They did call it. I must say I find the whole thing rather sad. That first of all, Jordan Peterson thought that he had all the answers. That's probably a good sign that he probably doesn't.
Yes.
And he wouldn't take criticism, which actually reminds me of somebody else, Vox Day.
Well, that's a topic.
He's a very smart guy, Vox Day, and the one thing that I really love about him is no defeatism.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Because all of us feel like just stuff it. Let's throw in the towel, and every person who doesn't do that is one more who stays in the fight and builds the army bigger and bigger.
And kind of ties in with what you're getting at here, huh?
Well, yeah, it is. But we don't just need an army; we also need an economy.
Yes.
And we always talk about community, but the left is actually much, much better at building community than we are. And the reason is not because, as they say, because they're more tolerant. They're very intolerant. Not because they're more compassionate. They're complete assholes. But because they organise. Now, I have highlighted a number of things from this article. This is by no means the only things that are of value here, and maybe I've highlighted too much. We'll find out. So this is Political Violence is a Game the Right Can't Win by David Hines. If there's one thing righties believe, it's that they could beat lefties in a fight. And absolutely, you hear that all the time.
One-on-one.
And actually, one-on-one we can, but that's not how wars are fought. Organisation requires time, communication, networking, and above all, practice. And vanishingly few right-wingers are interested in doing the necessary work. And you see that over and over again. I organised the Melbourne Traditionalists conference because nobody else even thought of it. It's not because I'm a genius. Anyone could have done it, but they're not interested in doing it. And then a miracle occurs. Is a long-standing fringe right temptation. You see it in all sorts of places. In Ayn Rand's hugely influential Atlas Shrugged, once a lone scientist moves to Gat's Gulch and doesn't have to worry about the leeches, he literally cures cancer. And it's true. And then a miracle occurs is, not those actual words, but you can hear them subtly in the distance, in the background, as so many people talk. And then a miracle will occur. No, probably not. The organisational capacity required to build a new world is the same organisational capacity that lefties build to pressure government. So who's in a better position to shape the big moment when it comes? Hell, if tomorrow civilization goes completely Mad Max, who's got existing local networks of people who they've used to turning out and doing stuff with on a regular basis? Answer to both questions, not the right. How can you criticise that? You can't. That's exactly true. Pacifists, which means people who are passive, say activism accomplishes nothing. What it actually accomplishes is practice. Practice for networking, practice for turnout, practice for speed, practice working as a team. Anyone who's ever tried to get 5 people together for dinner knows it's a pain.
What is it? The odds of getting the correct amount of money at the end of the night for the bill is the inverse proportion of the number of people who paid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The first thing righties have to understand about lefties,
He shouldn't be writing this. He's giving us all the hints.
is that lefties have a lot more practice building their own institutions and assuming control of existing institutions than their counterparts on the right do, and they share their practical experience with each other. I mean, you're right. He's giving us all this information. Righties who like to build churches will build a church and worship in it. Lefties who like to build churches will build a church, write a book telling people how to build churches, go out and convince people church building is the thing to do, run workshops on how to finance, build and register churches, and then they'll offer to arrange church guest speakers who'll come preach the lefty line. Righties need to do a better job of teaching each other. This is in a left-wing socialist magazine. Righties need to do a better job of teaching each other.
Is this guy just one of those guys who he just wants a worthy opponent? He sounds like Goku here.
You know, half of this article sounds like it was sent to a right-wing publication who said, "Oh, we wouldn't write this, we wouldn't publish this." So he changed a couple of words and sent it to a socialist magazine.
It actually sounds like because Lucas Rosses wrote a piece on XYZ a few years ago called "How to Save Australia Day." It sounds like he lifted it from this. It's quite interesting to hear. Yeah.
The lefties call that approach embracing a diversity of tactics, which, taken to its logical extent, is a weasel-worded way of saying that the lefty mainstream is comfortable with radical leftist violence.
Yes.
Yeah. And
so don't disavow.
Exactly. Embrace a diversity of tactics.
Yeah.
It is exactly what it says. Lefties are excellent at protest, not because they pay seat fillers, but because they're professionalised organising them. As you'll discover if you read any of their books, the protesters aren't paid, the organisers are paid. Now, where do we do that? Everything is very amateurish on our side. You know, we don't have this. And people say, we don't have the money. But, you put money aside, you put $10 a week aside, that's $520 a year.
Oh, absolutely.
All right?
Yeah.
$500 is actually money you can do stuff with. $10, probably not. All right? When 10 people are putting in $520 a year, that's $5,000. All right? You can actually make really big money from small amounts of people. All right? Small amounts of initial capital. That's how the left does this thing. And they organise with other groups to actually help them pay for things. And we don't do anything like that. By contrast, righty organisations have historically been slow to organise. Oh yeah. When they do, right-wing activists tend to stay in their own lanes and not work together, share notes, or reach out to one another's followers. Again, that's absolutely true. That's happening right now. Now, this is a bit of a jab at you and me. More, unfortunately, when righties do become active, they tend to do something like start a blog, or make a YouTube channel, or write a magazine article. In short, they become street corner evangelists. They tend not to do things in meat space, which is real life. And it's true. That's what we do. That's what you and I are doing. So according to Mr. Hines, we're the problem.
Not necessarily. So we're at least talking to each other, networking.
That is true. We do talk to each other, and in fact, we actually came from different groups, and we came together to do this podcast.
Yeah, and we bring other groups together. And it's what I've seen. It's what I was talking about before with the XYZ guide to what to do when you get red pilled. That's the logical next step, like understanding. Okay, we need to make these physical networks.
Yeah.
And we actually need to build them over the course of a decade. Again, I'm referring to like Lucas's writings. Like he's studied socialist alternative and how they formed and how they basically came into existence over the course of not just one decade but several. And these people, they've built these organisations. They've taken decades to build these organisations, and they've got decades of human capital in them, and that's the kind of dedication that it's going to take. So when we look at like how if the right, well, just if we look at what happened on Australia Day, you had hundreds of feral leftists walking from Spencer Street, from Spring Street down to Flinders Street Station. You had one guy who got arrested for standing on the steps of Flinders Street Station, and then there were about 20 other guys who got a move on order and they moved on. So that's never going to be a match against the hundreds of feral lefties. So it's not just about getting more people, it's about having the infrastructure behind that to like give those people support, give them legal support so that they can stand their ground. Dead set infiltrate NGOs and government organisations so that we can get not just like fund each other, but get parasitical funding off the Australian people the way that left do, like through their environmental organisations. Like we should seriously consider infiltrating organisations as well, and that can be done with people who have their heads down and like haven't said anything while they get red pilled. That's my first bit of advice about what to do when you get red pilled.
Yep.
And just have this understanding that yes, we can have it. The lesson from 2016 is very interesting because with a little bit of freedom on the internet, we took over the internet. We gained political victories, but then because the left have the institutional power and the organisational power that you're referring to here, they were able to keep on doing what they were doing anyway. They were able to bit by bit clamp down on the internet and basically purge the mainstream social media sources of like true right wingers and nationalists, and then they were able to just keep going business as usual, put a little bit of pressure on the people who won the political victories. They control the institutions, and so they just keep on going. So we've got to, like, if we're serious about actually winning, and I'm certainly serious about winning, then we have to do better. And we have to. That includes organising. It includes supporting our people at every level. We have to take more notice of what the left has achieved and how they've achieved it. Yeah, that's a really important one. So, like, often I will. This is one of the things I like to do with my writing. It's one of the mindsets I like to change. Like, I will deliberately say horrible things about the left and advocate horrible things, and people will respond, "Well, you don't do that. That's what the left is doing. Like, you don't follow the leftist track." Don't define yourself by the tactics that the left uses. Don't define yourself like as being right wing in opposition to the tactics that the left use.
That's right. We have to win.
Yes.
You know,
so
if we have to use gas, well, we have to use gas. Right. Yeah. You know, if we have to use tanks, we have to use tanks. If we've got to bomb cities, we've got to bomb cities. You know, whatever tactic works, whatever strategy works, you've got to use it.
If we have to isolate and personalize an issue and destroy somebody's life online That's not what the left do. That's what winners do. That's where I'm going with that. So it's one of the things, like, because I've heard the line before about how, like, the right wing are too individualistic, and that's true. One of the important things about this is the right. I find that there are far less manipulative, narcissistic people. It's one of the real joys that I've had in connecting with, like, genuine traditionalists, nationalists, just ordinary.
I agree. I agree. As people, they're very nice.
Yeah, but that's also part of the problem.
Yeah,
because we are good people who are not manipulative and have our own lives and don't need other people to give us validation. That's one of the reasons why we don't spend all of our time on the weekends in these organisations surrounded by other people like us, because we don't need to. The left are already the kind of people who are needy, whiny, drainers, people who drain your energy, and they feed off each other, and they're the types of people who, like, one of the reasons that they are involved in these kinds of organisations and have this amazing skill at just being able to weave their tentacles into all the right places. Yep. They're already the kind of manipulative people who are really good at this. So I'm not going to say, oh, we're outclassed by better manipulators or all that sort of stuff, but just understanding that and then going, okay, we need to be just as fanatical as them anyway.
Well, I think that, that it's just the basic organisation. So often we don't have that organisation there, and we don't treat it seriously, and we do. With then a miracle's going to happen. Yeah. I find that is a very prevalent attitude.
That's a really interesting one, because like that's the little bit of magical thinking that needs to go. There's a point A and a point C, but there's the process in between that's vital.
No, absolutely, and we've got to stop thinking of the enemy as a supernatural force. Because so often we attribute to them, these huge abilities that, whether they have them or not, they can be defeated. And very often they don't have them. And even when they do, they're things that we can actually do something about. But to do that, we've actually got to be organised. And one of the best ways to get organised is to join a existing group like the Melbourne Traditionalists or a group like that. And if you don't belong to you can't join a group like that because there's none in your area, you can start one.
Make your own. Yeah.
The Melbourne Traditionalists started with 2 people. And for the first 6 months, that's all it was, just 2 people. And then we got a third. And, in December we had 20 people come along. So, everything has to start somewhere. So I'll put an article about how to start a group in the box below. And people who are interested in actually doing stuff, that's one way to do it. And of course, another way is to support people like us on Subscribestar.
Yeah, that's it. Flog it.
Yeah. Now, I think where are we? We're at 29 minutes. I think that's a very good place to stop it.
Absolutely.
Whereabouts can people find more of your thinking?
Come straight to the XYZ, xyz.net.au. We actually have a Patreon as well, but we're gonna actually start up a Subscribestar because Patreon evil. So when we get that set up, we'll ask people to move from Patreon to Subscribestar.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And you've been publishing a lot more articles of mine on XYZ, and
I've been loving
very
it.
appreciative of that.
There have been some good comments, just like just the clarity with which you write. It's one of the things I find with people who are just red-pilled as. We learn to ignore the fluff, and we don't worry about trying to make caveats, and we just get straight to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
And it's something I've learnt from guys like Adam and yourself. It's just bang, straight there.
Yeah. And I'm Mark Moncrief, and you can find out more of my thinking at Upon Hope. Just type that into your favourite search engine and you'll be able to find me. Thank you, David.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good week.